So my family got together today to have their weekly Sabbath Sunday school discussion. And the topic turned towards journaling. And a lot was said about why we should journal. I want to share an experience that happened to me just in the last 24 hours. And so I thought it was interesting that here we were talking about journaling because this experience with journals, a testimony of journaling had happened to me just in the last 24 hours. The story is that my wife and I try to do fun, exciting date night activities almost every day of the week. We have a spreadsheet, since I'm a CPA, of hundreds of ideas for activities. And I have programmed the spreadsheet so when you open it, it gives you one of those ideas and says, why don't you do this? And if you don't like it, you can choose another one. But the idea for last night's fun activity was to read from my journals. And so we found a missionary journal of mine, 20 years old. We were reading from the July 1999 dates when I was serving in Cherkasy, Ukraine. And that day that we read about, there was a zone conference that I had traveled to. Now, I'm going to admit some of my own foibles and follies of youth here and tell you that there was a sister missionary that I was attracted to and that I had flirted with on the way to that zone conference. And um, she was attracted to me, and we had discussed our mutual attraction, or we had been flirting, as I say. And I was very disappointed in myself, frustrated that I had not been focused on the Lord's work, and that I had, as a young man is wont to do, been flirting with and thinking about girls. And so I was writing this in my journal, my disappointment, and also writing that I had resolved not to do this again, and that I had discussed with this sister missionary how we can be brother and sister to each other. And in Ukrainian, and the words that I was using was bratik and sestrichka, just little brother, little sister, forever, I wrote. And I said, and I'm not sure how this promise will be fulfilled, but God will fulfill this promise. I actually wrote that in that journal entry. And as I was reading this with my wife last night, it struck me that of the randomness of being of it being suggested to me to read my journal entry, the randomness of picking this date, my wife opened to it randomly in the book, and the randomness that, or the coincidence, the blessing, the tender mercy from God that this particular journal entry had these words in it, that God would fulfill this promise that the sister missionary and I were kind of making to each other to support each other and to be brother and sister forever, and that I didn't know how that would happen, but that here I was reading about it and it had actually happened this week. In that, this same sister missionary, who I have kept in contact with, sometimes more frequently than others over the last 20 years, but more recently we've once again started communicating. And she was a Ukrainian by birth, and she now lives in the United States. And I don't want to get into great detail about who or where or whatever, but just in this last week, I had taken two of my children to try and travel to a foreign country. We were going to try to go to Turkey for a few days because that's one of the countries that's open right now to Americans. And we couldn't. We got stuck in Detroit. And then we decided to change directions altogether, and we went to a different American city where we could spend a few days and relax. And it so happens that this sister missionary that I have stayed in contact with lives in that city. And among the other things that we did there, we visited with her and her children and her family. And she fed us dinner. And again, our relationship is strong. And what's interesting is I think it's strong only because we had such closeness in the mission, because we were flirting, because we were attracted to each other. I don't communicate hardly with anybody else from the mission or any other missionaries, only those who I was really closest to. So the fact that I was close to her enabled our continued communication 20 years later. And now there are certainly challenges in both of our lives, but in her life, as she lives in a foreign land here in America, as she may not have as many friends as she would have if she were home, and as her family goes through different struggles, and as we all go through struggles in 2020, it's a challenging year. And here I am, still her bratik, and she is my sestrichka, and here we are able to support each other and fulfill that promise we made to each other, which I would not have remembered or known about, except that it was written in a journal. And I wrote that God would cause it to come to pass, and he has. And so journal entries, my family and I discussed, are ways to write down the impressions we receive from the Holy Ghost, the spiritual experiences that we have as a witness of God when we see God's hand in our life, and as a witness of Jesus Christ. These are the testimonies and the experiences that we have lived through and that we have felt. And we don't lie when we write them. Why would we lie to ourselves? we write messages to our future selves, and it is important for us to look back on those messages and to say, oh, I had forgotten about that. But absolutely, it must have happened, because here I am writing about it. Why would I have made this up? And so then we know that these are our own testimonies and witnesses of the power of God in our own life. And that's one reason why we write in a journal. And another reason is simply to make us aware of the things we're grateful for. Just this past week, President Russell Nelson of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints invited and encouraged everyone around the world, as we're approaching Thanksgiving, to spread gratitude online for all the things that you're grateful for, and to make a record of the things that you're grateful for. And making that record in your journal is absolutely appropriate, so that you can again look back and think on all the wonderful and marvelous blessings that the Lord has given you. As Moroni writes in the Book of Mormon near the end, that when you have received these things, meaning the words of the prophets testifying of Christ, I would exhort you to, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but essentially to reflect upon and to think upon how gracious and merciful the Lord has been to the children of men down through all generations of time. Basically, remember all the blessings. Remember all the ways that God has blessed his people and has blessed humanity. Think on that. And this is what President Nelson has encouraged us to do, to think on the blessings God has given us. Because as we think on our blessings, as we count our many blessings, doubts disappear, our testimonies grow, we can see the hand of God. And so journals become our own scriptures, our own word of God, our own witness of Jesus, of God, and of the blessings that they give to us. I also noticed that in that missionary journal from 20 years ago, I was very critical of myself, obviously, for what I thought were my follies as a missionary. And there were many other things that I written in there, ways that I was critical of my lack of focus. And I recognize that throughout my life, I've been very critical of myself. It's something that didn't just happen on my mission. I'm my own worst critic, as many of us are. It's important to record in our journal our successes, the good things that happen to us during the day, to write down even the small good things. Today, I made a video on YouTube, which is something I've been trying to do lately. Or today I even wrote in my journal, which is the little goal I've had. Today I worked out, which is a goal that I have, and I just have a low bar goal to work out for a couple minutes, and I actually did that. Or whatever our goals might be, whatever, when we have succeeded in them, make a note in our journal so that we can remember that we've been successful. It's a terrible thing to go through life viewing yourself as a failure, thinking that you're not very good at anything you set out to do. And so causing yourself to write down your successes every day, something you did well, brings that to your mind and helps you to think of yourself instead as a successful person, someone who accomplishes their goals. You start to see yourself differently, and you're able to accomplish more. Now, and as you go through your day, thinking every day that today I'm going to write in my journal the things I'm grateful for. And today, because I do that every day, or today I'm going to write in my journal the way that I see God's hand in my life and the way that I have felt the Spirit today. Or if you go through thinking I need to write today of my successes, the things that I've done well today and how I've accomplished my goal, then throughout the day, those things will become apparent to you. Again, if you're every day writing your gratitude and God's hand and your successes, then you will see things during the day that you're grateful for. And this will bring you cheer. It will make your day better. And you'll say, oh, there's the thing that I'm going to write in my journal that I'm grateful for. you will see God's hand throughout the day because you'll be looking for it. You'll know, I have to write how I see God's hand. And so it will become apparent to you that day. And you will see your own successes and start to think of yourself as a success because you'll know that I need to write how I'm successful for today. And then again, whether you look back on these journal entries or not, you're going to be going through your days with more gratitude, with more success in your mind. But if you do look back, then that's even more of a testament to your success and to the way that God has helped you throughout life. So once again, celebrating the things you're grateful for, celebrating God's hand in your life, and celebrating the way that you have succeeded is a great way to record your daily activities in just a couple of sentences. You don't have to write paragraphs or pages about everything that happened to you during the day as you make a journal entry. I encourage you to make a journal of celebration and celebrate your successes, your gratitudes, and God's hand.